Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers is a weekly program designed to answer all your questions, including the ones you didn't even know you had, and to clarify the endless debates around the wonderful and fascinating world of sexuality. Join us for real talk about sex from two experts in the field. Richard and Larry Siegel have over 50 years of experience as sex therapists, educators, counselors, and researchers. The Siegel brothers are recognized around the world as trainers of medical and mental health professionals.
Hello, and welcome to Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. I'm Larry Siegel, a clinical sexologist and certified sexuality educator.
And I'm Dr. Ricky Siegel, a certified sex therapist and supervisor.
And I'm proud to say my brother. I'd like to start off with a toast to you.
Cheers.
And to you all out there for tuning in and watching us this and every week. We thank you. With our usual sake toast.
Delicious.
That's, just basically a regular junmai type of sake, but I added some homemade lemon jello into it.
This guy, always the chemist.
Play with the flavors a little bit.
Nice.
Give it a little smoothness, especially when it's hot.
So, thank you for joining us for this week's Sex Talk.
Indeed. And as you are fond of saying, not only joining us on Friday nights, but every night should be a night for sex talk.
I am fond of saying that.
You definitely are. And it's again, it's something
we should talk about sex all the time.
All the time. Those of you
until we get it right.
Those of you who look in the mirror, those of you who look at a partner, it's amazing. Again, and we're often railing about this, how the most significant aspect of people's lives.
And the one thing, what else can we say, is universal to every human being on the planet.
Indeed.
Not a lot of things.
Nope.
But the thing that's most universal, we can't seem to talk about.
No, we really can't.
Because it's dirty.
And I mean, again, when are we going to give up that legacy? That legacy of considering that, we have dirty parts.
At the risk of sounding too pessimistic, when I got into this, when I got my first gig in sex ed, your old gig, in the early 90s, it dawned on me, just sitting with the kids in the rooms that I was sitting with, doing the math in my head, that I was talking to hippies kids.
Yeah.
And their parents were no more comfortable talking to their kids about sex. The ones who supposedly broke all the rules, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and burning their bras and growing their armpit hair before everybody started plowing all their pubes.
Right.
And they were no more comfortable than our, Eisenhower era, leave it to Beaver, father knows best parents.
Right.
So if hippies can't, who can?
Well, and in some ways, it's those hippies who are now the older people who, in some ways, and not everybody, I'm making a generalization, but in many, many ways, they've done a worse job. Right? They really have. They've done a worse job, because when we look at what's happening with a lot of these generations, parenting is not what it once was, and it seems that in sort of a rush for our side of boomer parents to not want to be like their parents, they seem to have gone the opposite direction.
That's the thing. I think there's a connection between the rush to the ends without considering any comfort in the means to get there.
Right.
So I think these people, I see it a lot with some millennials and Gen Zers, where they just have to be so cool and so progressive, they can't admit that they have anxieties, right, or embarrassment, or maybe even some kind of trauma, right? So I think a lot of the hippies, it's like, we have to be there. Doesn't matter how you get there. Just be opposite of your parents. And like I said, they ended up turning into their parents. Go figure.
Well, yeah, even more so. And part of it is, I think, that generation of parents that were so afraid of upsetting their children, saying no, giving any kind of guidance. And in fact, not only, I think, did so many parents of that generation abdicate their roles as parents, but they basically became sort of co-conspirators for every one of these forces that we've been trying to protect kids from.
Yeah. What happened to the good old days when kids were supposed to be afraid of upsetting their parents?
Right.
Like we were.
Right. So, it really is crazy. And we see this, and again, not just in parenting, but we see this in so many areas.
The culture.
It really does.
Including professionals.
Exactly.
And clinical professionals.
Yeah.
Where the culture the culture we all live in affects the thinking. So that even among psychotherapists and psychiatrists and medical providers, psychiatrists and other medical
providers, yes,
that the same taboos, the same we can't talk about it. It's naughty. I'll embarrass someone.
Yeah.
Right. Doctors are afraid of embarrassing patients. Patients are afraid of embarrassing doctors.
And in the meantime, nobody's getting what they need.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem. It's one of the things and we've seen this for many, many years, right? And we've talked for many, many years about how here in the United States, as we're supposed to be so hip and sophisticated, yet anything that can possibly go wrong in the areas of sex and sexuality, we lead the world.
We're number one.
By far.
We're number one.
Right? And, there was that study done in the 90s. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Advocates for Youth. Barbara Huberman.
May she rest in peace.
Yeah, who led that, and I'm so it's a regret that I wasn't able to go on that trip. I was invited, but to look at how sex ed and look at how sexuality is dealt with in most European countries, and we can see one of the biggest distinctions between the problems that we have in this country and the lack of problems in most European countries has to do with the fact that they seem to get the idea that this is biology. This is a part of our humanity. We still, here in the U.S., continue to screw up by defining sex and sexuality through some ridiculous lens of some arbitrary morality. Right? And sex is not seen as what we are. It's a judgment made about what people do.
Right.
And we so miss the boat. Right? We have to make that change. We really do.
I'm just thinking, how is it even possible that words like moral and immoral are even still in the vocabulary in the 21st century? Especially considering the political climate in the last 4 years.
Well, it's
people
crazy.
People talk about what morality is when they've tolerated such immorality and the highest levels of government.
Yeah, well, not for nothing, but the people who talk most about morality are the people who tend to score a little bit higher on the immorality scales.
Well, and people who preach the loudest about sexual morality tend to come down in favor of things like, dropping bombs on people's heads, executing people for any number of crimes, denying people rights to live.
And by the way, and especially on that first example, just in case anybody wanted to you're just talking shit. How many so-called pro-life people who are so adamantly opposed to a woman's right to have an abortion, yet so many of them favor the death penalty.
Almost across the board, like it's a political platform.
Right.
Pro-life people favor the death penalty. They're big fans of war, big hawks. So many things that are anti-life. Right. So they're pro-life for embryos and fetuses. Everybody else can fuck off and die.
Exactly. And just like so many of these people that call themselves libertarians. And basically like to say, keep government out of our lives, yet they want them in bed with everybody else.
No libertarian should ever raise any issue of what anybody does with their bodies or in bed or with whom, because by definition, libertarians, liberty, don't tread on me, I'll do my thing, you do yours, that's right. That's
the government is supposed to do what people can't do for themselves.
The hardcore patriots.
Yeah.
And even like these militia types who think they are, they're not
No, they're not.
libertarians.
No, they're not.
They're reactionary conservatives.
Yes, and usually religious conservatives, which is also anathema to libertarian.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So you know, and again, as you said before, it kind of creeps into so many of these professions, and it seems to be underlying so much of the medical profession,
right,
that when we try to get doctors to support this idea of sexual health, it's often a very difficult sell.
Very resistant. Yeah. But the one of the benefits of being in a relatively small field is we kind of, everybody knows everybody. Everybody trains and studies next to people whose books we've read and studied, and we get to train others and watch their careers rise and have these plans, right? Just like sexually unhealthy attitudes permeate. We can also plant seeds of people who are spreading the word of sex positivity,
indeed,
and sexual health. And we're very fortunate to have one of our favorite medical people,
yes,
Dr. Hiten Soni from Kansas. I think from India first.
Right, Kansas by way of India.
I can't quite hear the Kansas accent anymore. But a wonderful psychiatrist, sex therapist, and our guest on tonight's show.
Indeed.
So we'll talk about his experiences dealing with a sex-negative, institutionalized fear of addressing sexuality, even among medical people.
Yeah, especially among medical people.
And welcome back. We're very pleased to be joined by another of our returning champions, favorite guest, Dr. Hiten Soni.
Indeed.
Welcome back, Doc.
So great to see you.
So good to be back. Thank you so much for inviting me again. I had so much fun that last time I was here. I was like, well, when I heard that, it's like, oh, definitely, I'm coming back. Yeah.
I'm so glad. We always enjoy talking with you.
We laughed a lot.
Yeah.
And yes, and you are, as we've used to describe very few other folks, but we like to call a unicorn.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A psychiatrist that, for starters, doesn't treat with the prescription pad and is actually a sex therapist and talks to his patients about sexuality and how it affects their lives. You don't see that every day in your profession, do you?
No, it's surprising that after, 100 and something years later, after the whole thing that Freud went through, and then now in 2021, it's like sex therapy. And then they get that silence.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you do? It's like, and sometimes I really yank that shit. It's like, well, we watch them do it.
Right.
And then we tell them what they're doing is wrong. He goes, really? It's like, no, I'm kidding. We just talk about sex.
We have big beds in our office.
Yeah.
We follow them home and stand at the foot of the bed. All right, Mr. Smith, get up. I'm only going to show you this one more time. Go over, Mrs. Smith. Right.
Yeah. So there is all this misinformation about like we are some kind of deviants that we are doing this. And it's like, no, where is the person supposed to go?
Right.
We live in the Midwest in Kansas. And there is a 28-year-old guy has this problem. What is he going to go to the family medicine? It's like, well, here's some Viagra. It's like, that's not what I need, And so where are they going to go? And then sometimes it even takes like 6 months, 9 months of being in a therapy. And then one day, so I don't know how to bring this up. It's like, well, the only way to bring it up is to bring it up. And and then so I don't want you to tell Lisa, but it's like, it's like, I understand. But yes, this is a perfect place to talk about that. So that's what we are. So I am, and in fact, I wanted to let the audience know that that Ricky was one of my first instructor when I had gone to Florida with in the Dr. Lee's school. So I remember him, like he came in and he was like setting it up, and I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. And then we've been friends since then. So yeah.
So
yes.
I know that your work has taken you in some interesting places and working with populations you probably didn't get a lot of exposure to in med school, right?
Yeah, not at all, not at all. And it was towards the end of my residency, and it's like they're like, oh, it's the time for you to choose your elective, and these are your electives. It's like, excuse me, what do you mean these are my electives? He goes, we want you to choose these electives, and it's like, well, how is that elective?
Exactly.
And so yeah, so we did something here and there, but I was fortunate enough in the medical school with Dr. Ranshaw, and she ran that clinic in Chicago, and that was my first experience in the med school. So when I was a fourth year resident, I was like, I need to get more training, because they're not offering me any electives here, and this is like my last chance. 4 years in med school, fourth year in residency, and not 1 hour of training.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And so when I found out about Dr. Lee and you, I was like, well, I'm going to Florida, and yeah. So
Yeah, we the internet wasn't quite there yet for continuing education, and so you had to fly down every month and
Mhm.
sit for a 10-hour class.
yeah,
Oh,
it was, but it was worth it though.
Yeah, those
Right.
were, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where you learned that genitals were actually attached to people?
Yeah, yeah.
Teach that in
And
medical
yeah,
school.
not only that, you learn that it's okay to ask your patient, tell me about your orientation, tell me about the quality of your sex life, and people like me, it's like, what, you see anybody else?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he goes, can we talk about that? It's like, I'm your shrink, we can talk about anything you want. And he goes, now that you have mentioned it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so this is video, right?
Yes.
Very good. So I wanted to show you this. So when I was a third year resident, they give you a medical student. They give you actually 3 medical students, and they tell you don't mess them up too badly. And I'm telling them about history taking, and so I'm asking them now. The sexual history taking is part of the history taking. Okay, so I need you to ask them about so we have this guy, and let's just call him he's from Saudi Arabia, and we'll just call him Muhammad. So it's yeah, and so and I was like, Muhammad, I want you to ask this person about their sexual history. And this is what he comes up with. So you and the missus, and it's like, Muhammad, what is that? I need you to ask.
Is that a technical term?
Just
Yeah.
a face.
Yeah.
Just-
Yeah, and just his face, and it was so. It's like, wow, it was that's just the foreign medical students. So I can understand that culturally, he's not there quite yet. But then there were people born and raised in Kansas or in Chicago, and they were like grossly undereducated about taking a sexual history. And he goes, are you sure that I won't be in trouble? It's like, no, we are doctors. You need to take the history. And how are you going to treat somebody's mental health if you don't understand something as crucial as that sexuality and the sexual functioning? Is this something new in psychiatry that was invented 10 years ago? No, this has been around for hundreds.
I think Freud had a thing or two to say about sexuality,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So that's where I started learning that how grossly undereducated our physicians are. And I was so glad that Ricky and you have this place where people can go and learn and educate themselves and come out and ask the patients and not be afraid to get sued. It's like, you're a doctor, that's your job. It is a psychiatrist, and if you can't take a good history, and how is that not part of the overall functioning and the overall health? So
There's been such a tragic history with, forget about the fear of doing something wrong or getting in trouble, people being denied treatment, people dying on the side of the road because paramedics would refuse to treat someone who's weird, or a transgender person, or a trans woman dying of prostate cancer because a urologist would refuse to treat.
Yeah. So that is it's a travesty that the way our medical establishment are so undereducated, and that's how I got started. So I wanted to. So I had gone to St. Louis for one of the SAR program. I had to do the SAR, the sexual attitude readjustment. It was a wonderful class that I went to. So while I am there, one of our colleagues now, he had produced a documentary called Trans the Movie.
Right.
I forget his name, Schwartz, Mark.
Mark Shawn.
Shawn.
Yeah. So he had produced that. He was in the process of producing this documentary, and he showed like 8-9 minute clip, and that was the first time that's like, oh wow, it was quite a learning experience for me. And then when I went back, and it was like coincidence or whatever. So there is this person who a trans woman. He was going to jump off the bridge, and the police bring him to the ER. And I'm the guy. I'm the third-year resident in the ER at night, and it's like, oh, okay, so I'm going to admit this person. And so this person is not on hormones or anything. He just has a long hair and is wearing a dress and has beard, so you can tell like he's biological male. But he's dressed like this, and the police bring him in, and they were very nice. They just, it's like, hey, this person was, going to harm. So we took him in, and I admit this person, and I write the order, and I asked her what name, and she said she had a preferred name. So I put the first name, quotation, preferred name, and then the last name. And I wrote a little note that please call her by the quote name. So, and in my admission orders, I had specifically requested a room on the female side. And so the registrar calls, and they said, oh, well, his driver's license says blah, blah, but you wrote blah, blah. It's like, no, if you read the whole thing, I have the real first name, the preferred name in the middle with the quotation, and then the last name. And she goes, yeah, so can't have a room on the female side. And I was like, no, you don't get to tell me that. I am the physician, and I write the order. If you have a problem, call your supervisor. Don't question me, call your supervisor. I don't report to you.
Yeah.
So she calls the supervisor, and that supervisor calls my supervisor in the middle of the night. And in the morning, the whole hell is going to break loose because you have a 24-hour limit. We have to get this person onto the floor. You can't keep him in the ER for 24 hours. So, and it's like, well, if you don't get him in the ER, you are in violation. I have written orders. So can you please explain it to me why these orders are not executed? And the registrar is like, well, we can't have I'm sure they didn't do a voice like that. I'm just and you go, oh, we have a policy that this side is the women's side and that side is the men's side. And it's like, no, I've been on this unit for 90 days. And I'm telling you, whenever the census is high on the male side, nurses routinely put men on the women's side. And when they're on the women's side, when the census are high, we routinely put over there. If there is a policy, there has to be a written policy. There has to be a policy number. Show me one. and they couldn't. And I said, well, I'm calling the ethics consult. Ooh, that's a nuclear option. If you call the ethics consult, people are like backing off. So they back off. This person gets the room on the women's side. And the thing is that they were separate private room. You're not sharing bathroom. Nobody's going in and out from other people's room. And that's why there isn't any policy. We routinely put people on the either side depending on what the need was. So that's why there isn't any written policy. That was the first time, Larry and Rick, that I discovered the institutional discrimination. And I was like, wow, look at this. This would never happen if this person wasn't trans. And so that was my first exposure to see. So here's a person who was about to kill herself. She comes to us for help, and now we are stuck about which side the room she gets. And there was never ever any policy. It wasn't. It still isn't there. You could, you could separate this wing is that, and like, where does that even come from? Like, do we have a lunch table for men only? And so people are sitting anywhere, they're doing things. So that was the first time I see it. And then the second time I saw it was, so I started taking interest and going to all the conferences that I could go to and learn everything I could. And then I had a person that needed hormones. So I was like, I'll send you to the local hospital. So I had an endocrinologist who was treating me with for my diabetes. And so I was like, oh, he's a very nice guy. I like him. He's Indian, I'm Indian. We are all good. Yeah, I'll send him to you. And so I send him. And then the person comes back and they are in tears. And it's like, well, what happened? It's like, well, they wouldn't see me. It's like, why? So I give him a call. It's like, dude, I sent you a patient. And they tell me that you did. Oh, yeah, I'm not comfortable seeing those people. Like, excuse me? Those people? Like, what people are those? And comfortable? Like, is this about your comfort?
Whose shit is it?
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we don't get too many chances to talk to psychiatrists that we love. What's your psychiatrist take on that level of transphobia and homophobia that drives people to such levels of violence? Is it internalized?
No, you ask a very good question. I cannot find a single excuse to justify this behavior. And if we cannot tolerate this from our physician or the medical community, because if they are doing that, then like everybody else can do whatever it is that they want to. So if the doctor does that, then so will the nurse. And then it goes down to the other support staff that it's okay to refer to this person as whatever. And this is not some sort of aberration or it's a choice. So what? Even if it's a choice, who the hell died and told you that people can't choose?
Yeah, no, I find it very interesting. Again, that whole idea, well, it's a choice, but if there was just a cisgendered person that was presenting with suicidality, how come nobody's telling them that's a choice? We look at them as an emergency. We look at them as we have to step in. And I'm wondering if in the medical profession, especially with your experience and what you've been seeing going around, if there's just that sort of default position that any sort of non-binary identity is a pathology. And the suicide inclination, the mental health issues are just seen as proof that this is in and of itself a mental illness.
Yeah, and which isn't. It isn't. And you know, and we know, but this is how then the medical community then, and I'm part of it, so I'll take some blame for it. But the idea that whatever that you were taught in the med school, and when I was going for interviews in the residencies and all that, and sometimes I would go in their office, you know, like the big program directors and chairman and all this, and you see like they have bookshelves, and it's like all these trophies, you know, these books that I read, and I'm keeping it as a trophy. It's like, dude, that was published in 72.
Yeah.
And so they are stuck with, and some of them were not just stuck in the book. It's like that hair, you know, the mutton chops are out. So, so they've been out for like 30 years, you know, and so yeah, and so you see, like they're stuck. It's not just the mentality or the psyche that they're stuck. Sometimes even the medication that they prescribe. It's like I get somebody with Thorazine. It's like, Thorazine? Do they use this? Where did you get this? Smithsonian? It's like I don't think any pharmacy carries Thorazine. But you see, though, this is like they were coming of age, and then they're stuck. So the ties are from the 70s, and all the, and then the mentality. Then I'm not saying that the old doctors are like that. You and I, you know, we're getting old. We're never going to be like that. So I'm just saying, you know, and so. And yeah, so I see that it's like people are often stuck, and when they have their thought, and then they believe their thoughts, and their thought becomes normal for them, and then they behave according to what they are thinking. So one of the best things that I had learned going through this training was that your thoughts are your thoughts. It's okay for you to have them. Let us try not to impose it on the patient. So when somebody comes and says, I am into blah, blah, it's like, oh, wow, well, tell me more. And so I don't want to like, you're what? You want to do what with what? Yeah. So that is a problem. And that's one of the things that I learned in the training with you, Rick, and in that SAR, and even with the Dr. Lee, that I learned that, like, oh, so you don't have to react. That whatever the patient's options are, or their choices are, the fetish, whatever you want to call it, people have choice to do whatever it is that they want, and you respect them, and you try not to bring the guilt and the shame.
Right.
And when you bring the guilt and the shame, you are doing your patients a disservice. So that was one of the things that I truly learned. And I even when I do the patient, you know, I have a students that come and we do preceptorship. And so I say, well, I would want to interview this patient and ask them about their experience. That what was his life? And you could see the person, you know, they're like, want to be a cardiologist and all this, and then you could see like they're squirming in their chair, and it's like, so you stop, like, stop, how are you feeling on the inside? And you ask the student, how are you feeling on the inside? I'm not feeling comfortable. It's like, very good, now stay with that discomfort and continue the interview. So tolerate the discomfort.
Yeah.
Nice.
Still do your job. So don't believe your thoughts. Focus on the patient's story. Ask questions. And then it's like they calm down a little. And it's like, you're throwing me under the bus. It's like, yes.
Yes.
Well, that's how you learn, you know. And so
Excellent.
it's like, so then they start interviewing the patient, and pretty soon the fear and apprehension and that kind of goes. It's like, they're not going to bite you. They're like in like a 200 miles away in another city, or like, we are doing this now. So we are doing this, and then we find that after one or two interview, they'll go and they'll say, yeah, so what are your pronouns? And when did you find out? And it's like, oh, okay, so your parents, and then they get like into the rhythm, and it's like, okay, and you start accepting the person and meet them where they are at.
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There
So
was
that's what, yeah.
there was a study we talked about many years ago. We talked about it for many years. I forgot who funded it, but remember they were asking patients about obstacles and asking providers about sexual issues. And the number one answer, the number one reason given by patients for not asking questions was fear of embarrassing
Right.
their provider.
Right. It's why they don't, especially older adults, why they don't talk about sex.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, they don't
So,
want to.
Yeah.
what's your physician's advice for what patients should, how patients should approach their providers, how they can be bold and ask whatever's on their mind and not be so worried about embarrassing the doctor?
Very good. So I this is the advice I give to all my patients. They work for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
are the boss.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not any different than, so I ask them, okay, so you go to the steakhouse and you want to order a steak, and you say, I'll have a medium rare. And that's the way you should have a steak. Otherwise, I'm just saying.
No other way.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So and they come back and give you a chicken. Are you gonna eat it? No, you shouldn't eat it. It's like, excuse me, this is not what I ordered. And it's not that different. We would be respectful. Of course, we would be respectful for the waiter. Even if he brought us a wrong meal, we would just tell him nicely, hey, but it's not any different that you should order what is it that you want to order, and you should ask what you went in there to ask. And it is, yeah, it is not,
Right.
yeah, very
Right.
good.
That's-
It's not
that's-
their, it is not their job to judge you. Can you believe he wanted a well done steak? And so it's not the waiter's place to bring you.
Right.
I know you ordered a well done, but I brought you medium rare. And it's like, why? Well, you don't know how to eat steak. Eat this one. You will not accept that.
Right.
So I want them to. And I educate the patients like, but please do tell whatever it is on your mind. If you can't tell your doctor, then you don't have that relationship with him.
Mhm.
And that's what it's like. I tell a lot of my young, now I'm old, so I can say that. So when I have the younger doctors and younger patients, and then I say, they use words like, we recommend. It's like, stop, don't recommend anything. Would you consider this?
Mhm.
It's
Or
not that
like-
it's not that I'm recommending it. Would you consider this as a treatment? Your job is to offer options.
Yeah.
Right. But people want you to recommend it so that ultimately they can blame you when it doesn't work.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, we had that. Like, I want the Cadillac medication. Like, okay, I'll prescribe you the Cadillac medication. Then they come back 4 weeks later. Go, so how did that Cadillac medication work for you? Yeah, so that's what I want to talk to you about. They didn't pay for it, and I'm very mad at you. It's like, oh, well, they said that they sent you a prior authorization and you didn't do it. And it's like, ma'am, when I write the prescription and I sign it, that's my authorization. I want you to have this met. Why do I have to authorize it again?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm not the authorizing party. Your insurance company is the authorizing party. The reason the pharmacy doesn't give it to you because they didn't get paid.
Mhm.
If you have money, you can pay them and they'll give you the pill. So I can afford $480. That's why I was telling you not to take the Cadillac medicine. And he goes, but I saw it on the TV. It's like, yes, yeah, I'm sure you saw it on the TV, but it's like brand name product. They're not going to pay for it. Well, I want a different doctor. It's like, lady, this is me, and that's all I have. I don't have a different doctor in the back. Like, let me see what I have in stock. And like, I want a different doctor. It's like, no, this is me. This is me and two nurses in the back. That's what we got. And so it's like, well, I want my money back. It's like, no, your money is, you don't give me money I'm not the prescription dealer. It's like, hey, want some Prozac? And it's like you're giving me money for the time I spend with you, and but that in the medical field, I was shocked. To see this endocrinologist say that. I'm happy to say that person isn't working at that hospital anymore. And so I went and I learned how to do the hormone treatment. And there was actually, it's interesting, the story I wanted to tell you, if you have a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. So this doctor is a radiologist, and at the age of 55 decided to have enough courage to go through the transition himself or to her. So all the other radiologists are like, yeah, no, you need to leave the practice. It's like, okay. So she leaves the practice. The wife is like, yeah, want a divorce. Like, okay. But the 2 out of 4 kids, like, we're okay with you, Dad, whatever you want to do, and so they're like, very good. Couldn't find anybody to give her hormones in a smaller. So after a while, she just realized that I don't want to be a radiologist. I'm going to give people a hormone. So she's a doctor and she could do that. So she learned, and now she goes around teaching other doctors if they want. So now when I get a patient who wants to try out, they want to do a trial of hormones for 2 years, and he goes, well, the nearest one is like 2 hours away. And it's like, well, if you want, you could do that. I thought you were a psychiatrist. It's like, well, I am, but I should do. Yeah. And that kills me though, being a psychiatrist. As people there. The other day I went to my real doctor.
That's right.
Like, well, I'm so glad that you finally got to go see your real doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, my normal doctor.
Mhm.
Oh, normal doctor. Okay, not the one with the ponytail. Okay, what the normal doctor? Yeah, and so that my regular doctor. It's like irregular I could live with, but normal doctor.
They need a lot of fiber.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
my real doctor, not one of the fake doctor that you are, but the real doctor. Yeah, the kind that gives me medicines. Like, what am I, chopped liver? You see that thing? It's just my pet peeve. But you have something to ask.
No, I was just going to say that your story about the radiologist turned endocrinologist, on the one hand, I find gratifying, and on the other hand, it really pisses me off.
Yeah.
It's I
She had
think it's
to
just
learn
a
how to treat
horrible
herself,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And that's
so-
a physician. So again, look at the people out there that are suffering at
Yeah.
the hands of, the waiter that doesn't want to give them a medium, a rare steak.
Yeah. So that was like a really eye-opening for me. And I meet this person, whenever there is a conference, and she comes and we kind of hang out and have lunch, and it's and then this person was also has this amazing perspective, and living 55 years with all the male privilege, and then transitioning, and then to experience the sudden loss
Right.
of that privilege. And she will say, so she when she was into muscle cars, and would go and at the auctions or something, and would look at it and buy it. And now she goes, yeah, where's your husband?
Oh.
And yeah,
Yeah.
do you like this interior? And he wants to talk about the
Yeah.
torque,
Right.
and the turning radius. Do you like this interior? And when he was shopping as a man, he was like, yeah, so good, oh. And it's like, yeah. And then it's like, yeah, so do you like this interior? And it comes in 3 different colors. And that kind, and it's like, why would you say that to me? And so she has this very unique experience now,
Yeah.
the loss of male privilege. And the other thing I wanted to bring it up, and I don't know if you have seen it in your work or practice, this pressure that is within their community, that they often use this concept of passing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Have you seen anybody complain or anybody have anything like that?
Yeah, not so much, but a handful of cases. Yeah, where it's a real issue.
Yeah. So
It's so controversial. We'll probably have to maybe save it for another show to talk.
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
things like,
Dr. is up?
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But there's some controversial trends like puberty blocking hormones for kids who are identifying younger and younger, and we have a long way to go in this country, unfortunately. When something as basic as gender, or someone feeling like the gender they were born in doesn't match what they feel like when they look in the mirror, it looks like that's not the body I'm supposed to have, and yet that is so threatening to so much of society. We don't have real problems to worry about.
For me, the greatest irony in that is that a lot of these same people can easily acknowledge that there are 700 different kinds of grass. There are 4,000 different kinds of mosquito. We got 80, million kinds of worms, but the most complicated and complex living organism on the planet, there's only supposed to be one kind.
And 2 choices for sex. That's it.
Right.
Get it right.
Yeah.
So
that's
it's just, I know. It just breaks my heart every time I see like a 12-year-old. They come and can I talk to him alone? It's like, yeah. And then I don't know how to tell my mom.
Yeah.
And then when I tell mom, it's like, and then they stop. Don't see him anymore. Because you're feeling her brain, you're feeling her. Did you hypnotize her? I actually had a person yelling at me. Did you oh yeah? So I have some. No, I don't have any Jedi mind trick. This is not the gender you want. Like whatever. It's like no, the kid knows. The 12 years. Are you kidding me? It's 12.
And let's commit to coming back and revisiting that, because I definitely want to really sort of pursue that a little bit further with you.
Absolutely, yeah. I
identified kids, and like you said, the puberty blockers, and that whole issue.
Yeah, let's do that. I would be very happy to come and discuss it and listen to your take on this. And so we have had a very good discussion. One time, I think we are coming to an end. So it was the same conference where you two were talking about the sex addiction. And I had talked about the neurobiology of trans.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But you guys couldn't come because I think at the same time you were doing something else. But I remember coming to your talk, and it was like there was no room. We had to sit on the floor in the front. It was jam packed. You guys really knocked it out of the park.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, so let's meet again soon.
Yeah, we'll
indeed.
See you in a month or so.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Dr. Hiten Soni from Lawrence, Kansas. One of our
thank you so much.
Psychiatrist, sex therapist extraordinaire.
And just human being.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Stay well.
Okay.
It's he really is. We got to give a toast to Dr. Soni. He's one of those people that can just talk to for hours, and again, miss
laugh a lot.
Exactly, miss the in-person stuff that we haven't been able to do all year, but it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much, and definitely look forward to having him back.
Yes,
because these conversations have to continue.
Right. Yeah, and everybody goes to the doctor. But people don't always know how to be prepared to visit their provider. And like Dr. Soni was saying, it's a consumer thing, like anything else.
Yeah.
And Americans, don't we have this worldwide reputation of being demanding consumers and not taking crap and give me a suit that's not tailored perfectly, I'm sending it right back. But something happens when we put on the paper robe and our feet don't reach the floor on the exam table. We turn like 9.
Right.
And the doctor comes in and, whatever the doctor says. No, we're customers.
Yeah.
We're consumers of medical services. And if we don't get the service we need, we should be assertive enough to ask for it.
Right.
If we feel like, excuse me, damn it, if our provider is uncomfortable, we need to say, hey, either get right or I'm going to find somebody else.
There you go.
Right?
Absolutely. And again, the irony that if we're going to buy a piece of electronic equipment, if you're going to buy we want to know how, where were the parts of this computer sourced from? We want to know where everything comes from. We want to know the minutia of every little thing, except when we go to healthcare professionals. Then we just go in, we give it up, say, do what you got to do. And for how many years, we've been talking about how it's just wrong that you'll make a car salesman, you'll make a computer salesman, you'll make a stereo salesman, anything you want to buy, you'll make them jump through hoops. Yet people walk away from their doctors and you say, oh, well, I got to do some tests. And you ask them, what kind of tests? They say, I don't know. Well, you got a prescription there. What did they give you? I don't know, something I have to take. It seems like we completely lose that idea that we are consumers when we go to the doctor. And we cannot emphasize enough. And I'm so glad that Dr. Soni said this, that you have to remember the doctor, just like your lawn person or your pool person or your waiter in a restaurant, is working for you. You are in charge. You are the consumer. You are paying for a service. And if you're not getting the service that you want, you fire them and find somebody else. Or you, like you said, tell them to get straight, that they need to learn about this stuff.
And no matter how brilliant and how extensive their expertise, you've been living in your body longer than they've been examining it. And,
That's right.
You should have a say in how you're feeling and how you think your treatment should go and what treatments you would agree to, and be, it's too easy to gloss over this word informed in informed consent.
Right.
People think you just sign the papers so they're covering their ass and you won't sue them, which you can anyway.
Yeah.
But it should be informed, meaning that you're signing stating that you have been fully informed about all of the consequences, side effects, benefits, risks to make a decision based on what you think is best for your body.
Right. And again, the key in all of that was so that you make the decision, not them.
We need to be empowered.
Yes, absolutely.
And less empowered in restaurants, right? Another health tip. Don't be a dick if your food is not prepared the way you like it, and take it out on your waiter, because they're bringing you food from someplace you can't see. And we've both been in the business long enough to know.
That's right.
Be very nice to your food servers.
Exactly. But stand up for yourself and make sure you're getting what you paid for. Right? Again, whether you're in a restaurant or you're in a doctor's office. Right? It really is the same principle. So, again, that's one of the things that makes Dr. Soni such a unicorn. Because this is a physician saying this stuff too.
Right.
All right. So again, one more toast, Dr. Soni,
and to you,
and
our beloved viewers. Thank you for joining us.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Check us our Friday night when we premiere, but any night you choose is a good night to watch, listen, and have sex talk.
Yeah, and feel free to make some comments and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Likes and shares on Facebook are always appreciated. And thanks for joining us.
Indeed. Stay well.
Thanks for watching Sex Talk with the Siegel Brothers. Join us each week on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay on top of the latest developments in the ever-changing world of sex and sexuality.